it's important to look at the macro side. And there's actually a very good paper from the IMF showing the very high correlation between the strength of the US dollar and the slowdown in growth in Latin American economies. Obviously, that's very important. The other one is the pass-through to inflation, which is always an issue in Latin America. But I think it's also very important to go beyond that and look at specific companies, economies, and sectors, and really discern what the impact may be for that particular company or that particular sector. So what we tend to do in Mizuho, we try to do is to look at the fundamentals. So I mean, the mix of US dollar versus local currency debt, look at the ability to hedge either naturally or through financial instruments, and that really gives you the full picture. Also interesting to look at what's going on since Mr. Trump's inauguration. No? It's quite interesting to see. I mean, the Mexican peso obviously stands out with a 9% appreciation, the Colombian peso and Peruvian soles 2% appreciation. So I'm not saying that we're seeing the last wave of volatility, but it seems to be anchored in a way. So bottom line, it's important not only to look at the macro, but also more at the specifics of each company. And we try to do it in a number of different ways, but I think I would highlight three basic items. One is our long-term view and commitment to Latin America. Latin America is a region of cycles, so you have to be committed and understand that there's going to be ups and downs. Number two, obviously, our Japanese, or I would say rather our Asian DNA, which really provides us the ability to take both issuers and investors to the Asian market. But I think more importantly, it's what we call business matching, which is the ability to bring Japanese companies, sponsors, investors into projects and infrastructure development in the region. And third, I would say, and probably more importantly, is our very strong US dollar franchise, which we try to deliver to clients in the Andean region and in Latin America broadly defined. What I mean by that, I mean we're, for example, number 9 in the US dollar investment grade league tables, probably the most sophisticated and deep market in the world. So being number 9 obviously makes us very proud, and it's a great credential. But apart from that, we're number 2 in syndicated loans for Latin America. We're number 3 in power and utilities infrastructure finance. So really what we try to bring to our clients in Latin America is a very powerful US dollar franchise. So I mean, we don't forget about our Japanese DNA, but we also want to showcase our very strong credentials in US dollars. So that's a very good question, and I mean, obviously, for a banker, every transaction is important and relevant and satisfying. And I would say, I mean, particularly for a bank like Mizuho, which is really focused on the top-tier clients in the countries where we have a presence, every transaction we win is a matter of pride. And we know our clients have a lot of options in terms of competition, structures, markets that they can access. So whenever we are able to manage a transaction for them, it's really a matter of pride. Obviously, I mean, there's deals that makes us particularly proud, and there I would say, I mean, the syndicated loans that we issued for Ecopetrol, for Petroperu, for EPM, more recently Corbanca, are obviously very important transactions and transformation of our franchise. I mean, that's how we got to number 2 in syndicated loans. But also the 4G Pacifico Uno project, which we financed along with Corfi Colombiana. And I mean, if I may go beyond the Andean region, I cannot leave the Pemex transaction out, which was a $5.5 billion bond that we issued in December. Effectively, I would say, reopening the US dollar market for Latin American issuers. But again, every transaction is important, and when you're a relationship-driven bank, really, you're not focused on the next transaction, but in the long-term view of a relationship. I think we'll see that. I mean, Indian structuring is risk allocation. You know? So when you have more players in a market or more sophisticated players coming into a market, you achieve a much more efficient risk allocation. So you have domestic lenders and investors taking part of the risk. I mean, they can see the sovereign as a risk-free asset, for example, which a foreign investor can't. You know, on the flip side, international markets are deeper, more sophisticated, so they bring something to the table. And I would add that it's domestic, international, and also multilateral banks, which I think play a key role in being the catalyst for infrastructure finance. So I think that, again, in the end, structuring is risk allocation, and when you have more players and more sophisticated players, that risk allocation becomes more efficient, be it in terms of tenors, currencies, off-taker risk, construction risk. That's what you want to have in a developed market.